InDesign uses the type tool to create text and to modify it later within the program. If I go select it from the tool palette and I just click, it does absolutely nothing. This one requires me to actually draw the frame before I can put any text in it. So I'm going to push and hold, and I'm going to draw just a small area like here. Now that that text box has been created, you can see the cursor tool right here blinking up in the top left corner. It's ready for me to either start to type text, paste text, or whatever. If I want to do the formatting, I could, before I start doing any typing, change it up here, the name of the font, change the size, leading, any of the metrics that are used with it, or I can do that after the fact. Off to the side of the page here, I've selected or placed a small block of copy from Microsoft Word. There's absolutely nothing wrong with pasting text from Word straight into InDesign. However, InDesign does come with a bunch of filters that look and massage the text as it comes on in. So certain things don't necessarily come out right by just moving from Word into InDesign, such as the quote marks around things are actually set as primes, so they're vertical rather than being curly, and just a few small things like that. But I've already placed this off to the side of the page, so I'm going to copy that text from there, come back in the text block, and hit paste so I don't have to retype it. It does appear that I've got a couple things going on, so I'm going to use the magnifying glass tool to zoom in on it. And I'm going to go ahead and disable the baseline grid so I don't see that. Now that the text is in here and selected, I can click on it with the text tool and hold down the command and type A for all. That allows me to come over here and change the name of the typeface. And hit the tab to return that. It also allows me to change the size if I knew that I wanted it to be something else, and the leading to be something else as well. I could change the kerning and tracking metrics in here, but I also noticed something else is going on. It automatically indented the text, so that must have been something from the Word document. My laptop is condensing these screens, but a lot of time you'll see this up here at the very, very top, way over here on the right-hand edge, which is talking about the text indenting. I'm going to go ahead and flip though. Almost every other control palette in InDesign is just one level deep. There's so many different things that you might need to mess with on the text that it gives you two different setups. And all this really does is this one puts all the font name, the size, and the leading on the left-hand side and stretches everything else to the right. If I click on the paragraph formatting, it basically flips it. So everything else way over here on my laptop would be where the font name and the type and the leading would be, but it allows me access to things where I can change the text to be centered, justified, flush right, flush left, or several other options in there, as well as these spacing features. One thing I'm noticing is that normally these things are all left at 0. If you hover over to just to the left of each one on the icon, it'll tell you what's going on. In this particular one, I have a 1/4 of an inch left indent. So that must have been something that was carried over from my Word document. So I'm just going to highlight this, enter a 0, and hit tab to get rid of that. This one allows me to indent the first line, kind of the traditional Microsoft Word way of indenting stuff. This feature here allows me to do an indent on the right. This one adjusts something for a justified block of text. This one inserts space before paragraphs. This is pretty helpful when you're using something like an annual report. So I've got, or some longer block of copy, I've got multiple column or paragraphs set in there, rather than me having to hit a hard return between each one, which it's not very easy to change, or it's just not, it doesn't flow with the rest of the text, or it's not proportional to it. This here would allow me to highlight this and adjust. If I change this to be 1 pica, it actually is going to put a whole pica in between each of those columns, or I'm sorry, in this case, it's putting 1 inch. So if I was to do this again, 1 pica, it's just going to put a small 1 pica gap between there, or I could change this to be something like 0.5 of a p, or half of a pica in between each one. Or in this particular case, since I really only am going to be using 1 block of text on this page, I don't have to have anything set in there at all. It can all be set at being 0. If for some reason I don't like the width of that text block, I need to go get the black arrow tool, because remember, it changes basically the frames or the content containers. This is pretty sloppy to leave all this. It's not that big of a deal, but if for some reason I had something else sitting in here, and it was actually covering up that area, and somehow the text block actually got sent to the front of this, I'd be trying to click on this bag and I wouldn't be able to go ahead and get, all I'm selecting is this big huge block of text with these dots around it, even though I'm clicking on the bag. That's because this clear frame at the bottom of the text tool is actually taking up space and it's covering the bag up in this particular case. So you don't have to do this while you're actually working right away, but before you get too far along, if you know the text is only going to take up this few lines, I highly suggest you go grab one of these bottom dots and just pull it a little bit closer, and that way you can have access to both of these separate objects. Again, with it clicked on with the black arrow tool, I can do multiple things. I can move it. I could come back in here and decide that I wanted to grab the bottom right corner dot, and I could slide it and make it be 2 columns wide, ignoring the column guides. Multiple different things. But for the most part, the text tool works, the type tool works to draw a box and then fill that box with either text that you either write from scratch or that you're cutting and pasting from some other location. When everything is selected, it allows you to change the typeface, the size, and everything else like that. The black arrow tool is what I use to move it to different locations and to change the width of that particular block. Follow-up videos will talk about how to use keyboard shortcuts to change the typeface and the size and things like that. The only other thing that you might notice kind of from a beginning point of view is if you accidentally drew the text box too small and not all the text is showing. So what's going on in here, I've got this little red plus symbol. It's really large at that small size. It's still pretty small right here. What that's ready for is if I was placing multiple columns of text, it gives me the ability to click on that little red plus symbol and come into this column and actually have multiple columns from that one block that are linked together. I'm just going to hit the undo command a couple times. If for some reason you see that though and you had no intention of having another column of text, this is indicating that there's overset text, or text there's more text than will fit in that frame at one time. Easiest way to fix that is to grab any one of these bottom dots and just pull down, down, down until the red mark disappears. When it becomes this empty open blue box right here that's slightly larger than all the other dots, that's just telling me that all of my text is fitting in the frame. There's nothing else that's still waiting for it.